Thank you all for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday here in beautiful British Columbia with the sun shining for a change. I love this weather. We will be expecting more people to come in, but at this point, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for signing up for this event that has reached the capacity that our Zoom can handle. So we can only accept 100 people, but this recording will help those who couldn't be here today or couldn't sign up. So my name is Karen Tyrell, and I am a dementia consultant and educator, and my company is called Personalized Dementia Solutions. And I want to start off by saying that Connie and I are so very grateful that we live and we work and we are in relations with all of you from many traditional and unceded territories here in British Columbia. And also that you're welcome to share with us in the chat where you're joining us from. I want to say that at Dementia Solutions, I have been in this field for 30 years, and I have seen so many different challenges as it relates to dementia care, but also senior care. And when I connected with Connie many years ago, when Connie started her company, we both were very, very passionate about supporting older adults in our communities. Connie sees a different lens, and I'll explain her bio in a little bit. And my lens is definitely focused on dementia care, helping families, helping professionals, helping the community to understand dementia and understand the best care techniques for these individuals. So this is what we do at Dementia Solutions through our consulting, our education services as well. And we really want to provide that confidence and the compassion to be brought forward to the people that we are all caring for, no matter who you are. So that's a little bit about us at Dementia Solutions. What we're going to do today is, if you can please put your questions in the chat. We're going to have my wonderful team member here, Ariel from Dementia Solutions, who's going to keep tabs of what's going on in the chat, and we'll bring it forward if we really need to bring it up at that exact moment. But mostly, I think we can save things till the end. We'll answer your questions then. And I just want to talk about, what Connie is doing with her work. And I'm just so thrilled that she was able to team up with me, because advanced care planning is so very important when clients come to me and they haven't done this. Oh my goodness, we are in a little bit of a challenge to get that done as quickly as possible in this world of dementia care. So we've teamed up to do 2 sessions, and this is the first session where Connie is going to lead the discussion around advanced care planning. And then next month on February 24th in the evening at 7 p.m., I will be putting on a talk on how to maintain a healthy brain, to keep your brain active, and to maybe share some ideas for those that you're caring for. And so we are looking forward to sharing with you practical, helpful knowledge for your day-to-day. And Connie's going to talk about today why it's important to do your advanced care planning as well for yourself, but also ensuring those people that you care about or who you're caring for are encouraged to do the same. She will be talking about the common pitfalls that we have seen when people don't have these legal documents prepared as well. She's going to share what you can do for that. So majority of you, I think, here know Connie. It sounds like there's a big number of people that Connie recognized on the sign-up list. And so in case you're not familiar, Connie Jorsvik, I hope I'm saying that right, is a senior healthcare navigator, advocate, and owner of Patient Pathways. Connie is an educator, an author, and a patient advocate, navigator, public speaker. She's an independent healthcare navigator, which is fantastic to have. And since 2011, she and her team have been passionately supporting hundreds of patients and their families as they navigate the complex illnesses, end-of-life care, and planning for the future. And of course, every province is different. And Connie, we are so fortunate to have you here in BC supporting people with our rules and regulations, and that you are the advocate that understands all this. So I'm going to let you take it away and share your passion.
Hello, everybody. I'm so pleased to be here. I will tell you a little bit more about myself, but I have a very limited amount of time. So I'm going to dive straight into the presentation today. And as Karen said, please don't hesitate to put your questions in the chat as you're thinking about them. Quite often, you're thinking the same thing or have the same question as other people. So this is the importance of advanced care planning prior to dementia. And Karen and I both really understand how important that is. So I was a registered nurse for 25 years, and I founded Patient Pathways in 2011. My focus has always been serious and complex illness, but that does include dementia because that is often when we are needing our healthcare teams, and quite often they're called comorbidities, where people have multiple issues going on at the same time. So they might have heart disease, diabetes, they might need a hip replacement or have had a hip fracture, and all of those things add to the what we call the burden that can cause dementia to increase. So I'm the past National Advanced Care Planning Coordinator with Dying with Dignity Canada, and my book, Navigating the BC Healthcare System, recently sold out, and so my team and I are busily rewriting that book. So as we move through this information and you feel like you need somebody to help you with one-on-one support, my team and I all are very knowledgeable about writing advanced directives and helping you with your advanced care planning. You will get my email, so if that's something that interests you, please reach out. You will be receiving the links to all of the relevant education articles presented today, as well as the recording after this workshop. So I want to say that advanced care planning is not something for when you're 70, 80, or 90 years old. It is a really important piece of being an empowered and informed patient or care partner for somebody else. It's important for all adults of all ages and all levels of health. And if I could shout out to the world, it would be to please encourage your adult children and the other younger adults in your life to get, at the very least, a representation agreement in place. It should be part of getting a will and a power of attorney, because before we're the age of 50, it is the most likely that we're going to be in a serious car accident, for instance, and we need somebody to be able to speak for us. So that is the beginning of advanced care planning, is healthcare planning. It's for right now. Everybody should do it. It's your medical history, your present healthcare, and your future healthcare goals. So it's important to gather information. I talk to a lot of people, and they might have a folder of their medical information. They might have it stacked neatly in a file drawer, all of their medical information, and those are well-informed patients. But how do we get this information to the hospitals during a time of crisis? And when we're talking about dementia and cognitive decline, it's even more important, because people who have cognitive decline are very likely not to be able to remember their healthcare history. They might not be able to tell somebody else, their doctors and their care team, about what's going on with their health. So it's so incredibly important that we have this documented, and we have it on 1 or 2 pages. And all you people in your life maybe have it on their phone, so that it can be presented during a hospital visit or an ER visit. So it's really important to know your past healthcare history. Your primary care practitioner, and we're calling that your practitioner, not your family doctor or your GP anymore, because it now includes nurse practitioners. They should be the hub for all of your information, but they're too often leaving their practices without notice. So it's really important that we're the ones who are gathering our healthcare information. Gather consultations and testing results if your past is relevant to your future. So, have you ever had cancer treatments, and what were they? Because that can affect your cancer treatments in the future. Have you had a part of your body replaced? Have you had a hip replacement or a knee replacement? What is your history right now? So your doctors don't need to know about your tonsillectomy when you were 4, but they do need to know whether you've got high blood pressure or diabetes, or whether you've got heart disease or hypertension, high blood pressure. Those are really important things. And then stay on top of your records and ask for copies of everything new coming in. So the best person for all your consultations and all of your history is your primary care practitioner. They are receiving all the information coming in. So when it's me, I make an appointment for about a week afterwards, after I've seen a specialist or had a test done, and I will ask for a copy of that report. And most primary care practitioners are more than happy to give that to you. And then you put it into a file, but wherever possible, try and now put it electronically into your computer, especially if you have something like Word or Google on your phone so that you can pull up those documents from your phone. Ultimately, as an empowered patient or care partner, consider it your responsibility to find and organize documents that might be relevant for your future. If you have a huge pile of paperwork that you would really like some help sorting through, please don't hesitate to reach out. So, on to the big event for today, which is advanced care planning. It is the number one tool in your toolbox. When I was a nurse, I had a stethoscope around my neck, and I had little booklets in my pocket that I could pull out in an emergency. I knew how to give life-saving drugs. I could defibrillate somebody's heart if it was to go into an abnormal rhythm. The day that I hung up my stethoscope was the day that I needed to pull out my communications toolbox. It is the only tool I have, and it is really the only tool you have. So advanced care planning is at the heart of being an empowered patient or care partner. I use the care partner because not all of us have a caregiver, but we should have somebody who is standing beside us, who is taking notes, maybe supporting us in getting or making important healthcare appointments. That person is your care partner. So this is all important for adults of all ages, of all levels of health. So advanced care planning is not one document. People will say to me, I've done my advanced care planning. It is a work in progress. It never really ends. It is an umbrella of planning documents and conversations that allow you to plan ahead for serious illness, injury, and at end of life when you're not able to speak for yourself. It's important for all adults of all ages. And if you didn't hear me saying that, that's the magic 3 times that I've said that line. Too many times, it feels too early to have these discussions until it's too late. So think about your values and beliefs. Our values and beliefs are actually subconscious. It takes a little bit of work. If we have ever said, I never want to get like that, you're actually talking about the surface level of your values and beliefs. Dig down a little bit. Why don't you ever want to get like that? Why would you want to have conversations with your loved ones if you were starting to have cognitive decline? Start to think about what's important to you, and most of the time that is based on what we have experienced in our own lives with our parents and other loved ones. Have conversations with your future decision makers and healthcare professionals, and then complete your documents. So engaging in advanced care planning is voluntary and never mandatory. But with that said, If you don't discuss your wishes for future healthcare, these decisions might be made by your substitute decision makers and your physicians. Oops, going in the wrong direction. So what are the documents? It includes a representation agreement, which I will talk about in a minute, enduring power of attorney, advance directive, and in British Columbia, we are converting all of our resuscitation orders to medical orders for scope of treatment, otherwise known as MOST. I won't be talking today about expected death in the home form, but it is one of the documents in advanced care planning. It's important that you put your copies of your advanced care planning documents on or beside your fridge, or a clear note on your fridge where they can be found. They aren't any good in a safety deposit box or a lawyer's office. It's really important that you talk to the people who you've named in all of these documents about where these documents are found and what their responsibilities for those are. So I don't know if you can see on this little tiny screen that I've got a yellow Post-it note, and I put my ICE documents, ICE documents, are located on the back of my front door. They're on the back of my front door because it will accept magnets, and paramedics would have to be blind not to see it on the way out the door. But generally, the place that you're going to be putting this is on your fridge. So representation agreements. In British Columbia, if you do not intentionally and legally name your substitute decision maker, we refer to that person as your SDM on a representation agreement. They will be named as your temporary substitute decision makers under the Healthcare Consent Act. If you are capable, the healthcare system is under zero obligation to talk to or update your temporary substitute decision makers. And I'm going to talk about capability in a little while, and I'm sure that Karen will have something to say, her stories as well, about this, that most people make the assumption because they are the spouse or the adult child that the healthcare system is going to talk to them and that they have some influence in the healthcare system. And often the healthcare system will include the temporary substitute decision makers, but they don't have to. So that temporary substitute decision list is a legal list, a legal hierarchy, and it can be the number one person is your spouse. And that is a person who's moved in with you, whether that was 2 weeks ago or 20 years ago. This actually is a problem because as we get older, if we've gone into a new relationship, into a new marriage, and suddenly that person is your substitute decision maker, that can really cause a rift with you and your adult children. So it's something that should be talked about. I see Karen busily nodding her head. Adult children are all equally ranked, and I call three a crowd. That often a couple of the adult children will be able to see eye to eye, and you get a third person in there and they start to not agree with each other, and it can be a problem. And then as you'll see in the list that it becomes more and more convoluted. Parents, siblings, grandparents, grandchildren, anyone else related by birth is before a close personal friend. And sometimes our close personal friend is the best person to speak for us. And so it's important to name, no matter who you are on this list, that you name a representative. So representatives are care partners. They are fundamental members of the patient's team. They are the deliverers of the history, values, and beliefs and preferences for healthcare. They are the eyes, ears, and voice of the patient when they cannot speak for themselves. Choose your representative with thought. Your representative doesn't have to be a relative. It can be a neighbor or a friend. And sometimes that's the best person. And it's also important to think of this as an administrative role than the person who will provide you with care. So it's time for a couple of stories. My dad was going down the classic roller coaster in the last 20 years of his life. And they lived in Kelowna and I lived in Vancouver, and my mom would phone me usually at 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening and say, I've had to send your dad to the hospital. Can you come? I don't know how many times I did the Coquihalla in the middle of the night, but it was a lot. My mom did not want to be the person standing at the nursing station. She did not want to be talking to the doctors and nurses. She found that overwhelming. She wanted to give my father a shave and wash his back and provide him with care. The person, your representative needs to be assertive. They need to be able to go to the nursing station if you're in the hospital, be standing around waiting for information. If you're at home, they're the people who are making the appointments, following up with appointments, maybe attending appointments. So don't, when you're talking to your spouse about this role, because we often put our spouse at the top of this list, actually think about why they would or would not want this role. We're often going down the same health and cognitive road as our spouse. And so if we're 85 years old, they're probably around the same age. We need somebody younger who can carry this flag. And in your articles that you'll be receiving, there's should my spouse be my representative? Representation agreements are powerful documents, but they are only as powerful as the conversations that go with them. If you are writing your representation agreement, also have courageous conversations about your preferences for care. My dad used to say to me, Connie, I never want to get like that, pointing to a brother who'd had a stroke or a friend who had advanced dementia. But I didn't know at that point how to say anything or what to do. If I could go back those 25 years, I would have pulled him aside, away from my mother, who was his constant cheerleader, and say, Dad, what does that mean? What do you want me to do when you get like that? If you are the substitute decision maker or the representative, take the time to ask what is important to your loved one as they approach the end of life. These are courageous conversations. Having a representation agreement is the only way you can appoint someone to act on your behalf for healthcare and personal care matters, such as where you will live, special dietary and clothing needs, additional help with daily living should they arrive. Your representative is concerned with all aspects of your future personal care and medical care. This is where I come in with one of my biggest massive pet peeves about the healthcare system, is that they don't understand what this document is called. So I get called probably at least 3 or 4 times a week and say, who is the power of attorney? And I say, for health or for personal or for financial? And they say for health. And I say, that's called a representation agreement. And they go, whatever. But it's important that we know the words. This is a representation agreement, and it's a very important document. If you've got somebody who's living in any other province in Canada, they're pretty much called an enduring power of attorney for health and an enduring power of attorney for financial and legal. And they're two separate documents. Representation agreements allow your representative to assist you while you're capable, but only upon your express consent, and I'll get to that in a second, and legally act as you when you are incapable of making your own decisions. So if you are still capable, it's important that your healthcare team is coming to you and saying, I see that Mary Jo is your representative. Can I talk to her about your healthcare? And so my daughter is my representative. She doesn't need to know if I have a urinary tract infection at this point. But when I go into the hospital, I don't want to be that person who's going to the desk and asking the questions. So people should be coming to me and saying, can I speak to your daughter, Chanel? So there are two kinds of representation agreements, and it's really important when we're talking about dementia what these two are. So a representation agreement, section 9, is for health and personal only. So where does this number 9 come from? In the Representation Agreement Act, there's sections in it, and there's a section on Representation Agreement Section 7s and one on 9. 9 is the best one. If at all possible, you want to get this one in place. It's got more power, it's got more teeth. It has no financial component, so an enduring power of attorney is highly recommended for financial and legal affairs. The representative can assist with routine matters while you are still capable and make all decisions when you are incapable. They are basically you when you become incapable. So it's important that you pick somebody who you trust. A representation agreement, section 7, so we call it an RA7 all, is for health, personal, financial, and legal. It can be used by those whose capability is in question. So when somebody is going down the cognitive decline journey, it can be used for them. And I'm sure that that you have a lot of experience with this one, Karen. The representative cannot make major financial decisions. They can't make end-of-life decisions, and it is restricted regarding personal care and residential care decisions. The representative has a modified and restricted enduring power of attorney to make simple financial decisions, but they can't transfer money or assets or close accounts. When somebody is putting together a representation agreement, section 7, it's really important that this document is taken to the bank as soon as possible. Banks don't like it. We're the only province in Canada who's got this document. Most of them have never heard about it, and it can take a long time for this to go to head office and come back. So don't expect it to be used in the case of an emergency. I want you to jump in here, Karen, because you sure are nodding your head.
You are doing fantastic, Connie. I'll jump in when we do talk about that one item I'd like to share.
Okay. So you can do a representation agreement for free through nidus.ca. They are the people who I use for when I'm doing a representation agreement. I like it for several reasons. Number one, it's clear. There's a lot of information that most people they will never need, but it takes 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes to do up this document. But the number one reason I like NIDUS is that it says my representative can assist me when I am capable and then can act as me as when I'm incapable. And the assist me when I'm capable is so incredibly important. And I will go into that with capability. So here we are. Under the law, you are presumed to be capable. You can continue to make decisions until you are incapable of making these decisions. If anybody else thinks that is phenomenally vague, you're right. It is incredibly vague. It takes an army to have somebody deemed incapable. It often takes a couple of specialists, a geriatric psychiatrist and a geriatrician, maybe a highly experienced social worker, maybe a neurologist, to make these kinds of decisions about capability, and it can't be done quickly. So, and it usually has to be extreme. But one of the things that Karen taught me, she taught me a very, very important word, which I have used almost daily since. It's called anosognosia. And maybe, Karen, you could put that in the chat. It means that you do not understand what is happening to you, and you might be in total denial. It is part of the disease. And unfortunately, it's a really common part of the disease. And so people are not understanding that their executive function is decreasing, that they're not being able to do their banking, that that the hydro bill has not been paid, and other really important decisions. So it's really important for the representative and other members of the healthcare team to be present and speaking to the specialists about what they're observing. Please don't ever send your loved one into a geriatric psychiatrist appointment all by themselves without backup information about some of the behaviors that you're seeing.
So if I can add, Connie,
yeah, yes,
I
please.
just want to add that anosognosia is a condition that affects up to 80% of people who are diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. It's poor judgment. Let's just say it is part of being having unawareness of their challenges. It's poor judgment. They still think they can drive, but everyone else around them, even the doctor, has claimed that they're not capable of driving, or they think they can do their own cooking and cleaning and they don't need to go to a care home, but everyone else says, wait a minute, we see something different. So I just want people to understand anosognosia can also prevent people from creating a representation agreement or a power of attorney. So please reach out for ways that we can support somebody, because there are creative ways to help somebody who is also affected by anosognosia.
Thank you. I learned so much about you, about this from you, and it really was a missing piece for me in being able to use that word appropriately in a medical appointment when it's something that you need to talk about. So it's like going to your mechanic and saying, there's a tick, 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 tick every time I do this, instead of saying, I think it's the timing belt. And when you can go in with the big word and say, I've looked this up, this is what my husband Bob seems to be dealing with, it adds some weight to the diagnosis. So the healthcare system will do everything in their power to a fault to get your consent for treatments and procedures or withdrawal of treatment or for discharge planning. This is a big one for me because I'm involved with a lot of discharge planning. Our healthcare system is really, really crumbling around home care and long-term care. And so they're forcing people to go home to look after themselves when they should no longer be. But with anosognosia comes, Mary, would you like to go home? Of course I do. But Mary doesn't know that she can no longer get her own groceries, that she can't get her own medications, that she maybe can't even get herself to her own toilet. So it's really important that we are talking about this openly, and sometimes I'm brought in to talk about it quite forcefully with healthcare teams who are forcing somebody to go home when they shouldn't go home. The healthcare system deems that advanced care planning documents are only to be enacted upon when you are clearly incapable due to serious or critical illness or injury or advanced cognitive decline. So not even moderate. We're talking about, if you know what a MOCA or a mental health score is, they're talking about somebody who is less than a 10 out of 30 before they will make this designation. But that can leave a great deal of ambiguity and misinterpretation. So with cognitive decline, capability more often resembles a roller coaster than a clear line. If you are taking somebody to a lawyer's office to have a representation agreement done, what time of the day are they at their best? What time can they think the most clearly is really important. What day of the week is best for them. Can you cancel the appointment if they didn't sleep well the night before and they're really foggy? So when capability is in question, the representative has more power to advocate for appropriate treatment and testing than a temporary substitute decision maker does. And when somebody goes into long-term care, a representation agreement is mandatory. And you need to get this in place long before they become incapable. So briefly talking about an enduring power of attorney, also incredibly important, and I hope that every one of you, if you don't have an enduring power of attorney, that you run to your local lawyer to get this done. If you were in hospital or residential care, it is vital to have an EPOA in place while you are capable and before you become incapable. With a representation agreement, there's two levels. You can have a representation agreement 9 or a 7. There isn't that option with a power of attorney. And lawyers have a very strict guidelines on how capable people are. So this needs to be done when somebody's clearly capable of making their own decisions. But while you're in hospital, bank accounts still need to be accessed and bills still need to be paid. There's a story about a year and a half ago, a woman in Penticton who went to hospital, and she was in the hospital for 3 months. She didn't have a power of attorney. And when she came out of the hospital, her landlord had rented her apartment to somebody else and had sold all of her belongings. He assumed that she had died or had just skipped out on her rent. If she'd had an enduring power of attorney, that wouldn't have happened. So it's really important. So what does enduring mean? It means that usually in the first paragraph or the last paragraph, it will say this is in place while I am both capable and incapable. And depending on the way that you word it with your lawyer, when will that be enacted? So this is one place I really encourage you to spend the money and go and see a lawyer or a notary. So quickly talking about medical orders for scope of treatment, because they are really important in advanced care planning, because the whole thing that we're talking about is what are our values and beliefs for our future healthcare? What do we want to happen to us when we are seriously or critically ill or at the natural end of our lives? So medical orders for scope of treatment, if you happen to live in the West End catchment area, you would go to St. Paul's. They're called code status. But other than that, in the rest of the province, they're called most. They're medical orders, so they need to be written by a primary care practitioner for the level of resuscitation that you would want to receive in hospital, residential care, palliative care, and hospice. And palliative care and hospice can be at home or in a facility. Too often, most is not discussed with the patient or substitute decision makers until the time of crisis, and by that time, compassionate conversation is no longer a priority. I unfortunately have seen this in action way too many times. When a loved one has gone in with pneumonia, or they've gone in with another condition where their condition quickly goes downhill, and the doctor runs out of a room where a code blue has been called or will be called, because that person's heart will is imminently going to stop, and they'll say, did your loved one ever talk about whether they would want to have CPR done or not? And usually the question and answer period is a matter of seconds instead of many minutes, the way it should be. So I want to bring up a couple of really important definitions, and a couple of things that I mix up all the time, but it's really important that we understand the difference. We talk about treatment and care being overlapped. Treatment and care are synonymous, but they really aren't. Treatment is ordered by physicians. They can be ordered, they can be withdrawn. Care, on the other hand, is provided by nurses, and it will never be taken away. So when we are talking about these next levels, people get really worried that if they have a lower level of treatment, that they're not going to get care. And that is not the case. I was telling Karen that literally in the minutes leading up to having this workshop today, I got a phone call from a doctor regarding one of my clients who is, he's been my client for years, and he has dementia. He's suddenly taken a turn for the worse. And so the conversation was with me about what does his family want. And we talked about that yes, go ahead and give oral antibiotics, but if they're not working, then please withdraw them and give him comfort care only. And so he has already written orders about the medications that my client will receive as his decline becomes inevitable. So just know that you will always receive care. CPR, the definition for it is cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and that is the very deep and aggressive compressions of your chest. After the age of 70, you should be having a conversation with your primary care practitioner about what your chances of survival are and what your life would look like afterwards. It's something you need to take seriously. Critical care means more nurses, which is often forgotten, and doctors and higher levels of treatment, and depending on the unit, big drugs and big machines. So when we talk about critical care, we're talking about ICU, cardiac care, intensive care, burn units, and neurological units. There's a lot involved in critical care. You can hardly see this blurry mess, and that's on purpose, but this is what the form looks like, and it's full of medical gobbledygook. And in the information that you'll be receiving, I try and break this down for you. If you do not have most orders in place, you are presumed to be at the highest level of care. And that means attempt CPR, attempt intubation, which is a tube down your throat to breathe, and place on a ventilator, and admit to critical care. So if you haven't had this conversation with your doctor, then everything will be done to save your life. The second critical care level is do not attempt CPR, but allow a tube to be put down my throat, be put on a ventilator, and allow critical care. And the third is, even if you don't want, do not attempt CPR, do not attempt intubation, but allow for me to go to critical care. So even if you don't want CPR or to be put on a ventilator, as long as you are not at the end of your natural life, this level should be considered. Older adults often need more intensive medical treatment and nursing care than younger people do. If you do not want to have CPR or to be intubated, make an advanced care planning appointment with your primary care practitioner to discuss most medical orders or scope of treatment. Your primary care provider has access to the most form. You must carry a copy of this order with you at all times and put it on your fridge. Consider ordering a medical alert bracelet, and it is the only bracelet that is recognized by paramedics. So it's fairly expensive. I think it's about $160 a year to get the medical alert bracelet, but they have your medical history on file, and the paramedics will phone to find out what your history is and whether you would want CPR or not. When we get to the medical levels of care, which are the bottom three of medical orders for scope of treatment, these are when people are starting to decline. And often this is cognitive decline and dementia. It means do not attempt CPR. Don't put me on a ventilator. Allow me to go to hospital, but not for intensive treatments. So at this level, adults have significant health issues or nearing the natural end of their lives. They might still benefit from palliative treatments and IV antibiotics, blood products, or a higher level of pain and symptom management. Often we as adults are no longer in charge of these decisions. This is where our representatives really start to come into play to make the decision about what level of care treatment you're going to receive. The second level is considered palliative care. Do not attempt CPR, put me on a ventilator, send me to critical care. Allow transfer to palliative care for pain and symptom management. But if you have dementia, if you are in a long-term care facility, you are very likely to stay in place for any treatments that can be given to you while you're in the long-term care facility. And then the final level is considered hospice. It's known as comfort care. It's pain and symptom management only. All medical treatments have been withdrawn. It means allow death at home or in a hospice. We're all going to take a breath for a second. And before we jump into the very final piece, advanced directives. So That's the reason that I put the medical orders for scope of treatment before this, so that you had some understanding of what the treatments are that you might want and might not want. So think about the treatments you would and would not want. Number one, if something catastrophic were to happen to you tomorrow, not 10 years from now, not 15 years from now, tomorrow. That could include being hit by a car, having a massive heart attack, having a massive stroke. Number two is if you were at the end of your life from a serious illness or aging, or three, if you have advanced dementia. It's important to think about what treatments you would want, and then have courageous conversations with your future decision makers and your loved ones. So this is not, I'm picky about some things, and one of them is this term. It is not an advanced health directive. It is not an advanced care directive. It is an advanced directive. Every province in all of Canada calls it something else. Drives me nuts, but what are we going to do about that? So in BC, it is a legally binding document that your healthcare teams and substitute decision makers must follow when you are not able or are incapable of speaking for yourself. It must apply directly to your healthcare. It is only in place while you are still alive. This is not part of your will. Your will comes into place the moment that you die. This is before you die. So consider writing an advance directive if you are alone and have no one to speak for you. If you feel you can't have conversations with those you love, especially those will be making decision makers, your decision makers when you can't speak for yourself. When the people you know might not be available in a time of crisis. So if you've got a loved one who lives in Toronto, and you live here in Vancouver or somewhere in BC, and they may not be available by phone or in person for some time, it's really important that you have this document. Or the biggest one is they might panic and will ask for healthcare treatments such as resuscitation, even though that is something you've decided that you don't want. So if you are having a difficult time having these courageous conversations, they don't want to listen to you. They go, I don't think I could abide by that. And by the way, this is not part of medical assistance in dying. I'm not talking about that at all today. That does not belong in an advance directive. So, but if you've decided that you don't want CPR and your family might be begging the paramedics to do CPR if you collapse, then it's important to put this in writing. So set yourself some goals and dates, and when you get it all done, give yourself a massive pat on the back and a well done, because this is hard work.